Not exactly hidden. The first hint that something is going wrong is a slight flicker in the security systems. It lasts only a moment, but it does attract attention. Everything seems normal, though, and it's dismissed as a non-issue. "I beg your pardon," Vernon says in the center of the compound, the Kuta pole slung over his shoulder like he's heading over to his weights on leg day. "Wait, who are you?" the woman asks. "I'm here on business, madam," Vernon replies. He's tempted to swing the pole into her face, but one, that would likely kill the woman, and they're here to take prisoners, and two, he has a very specific job to do. He sits down on a boulder and places one end of the bar on the ground in front of him. A twitch of axiom and it activates and synchronizes with the 10 pillars. He flicks a small switch on a device on his belt. It has one thing to say to the rest of the teams. Go. The security station fills with screams as the door goes flying in via a boot. It's followed by a dozen men in all black with skull-patterned bandanas that rush the room. The screams are cut off in a second as they're all knocked out simultaneously, and then they're gone, and the room is under control. A device is placed in the center of the controls, and a light on it goes from amber to green. "We have the controls. Next stop, archives. Go, go, go!" The Hat orders, and he leads the charge out of the small room and outright tramples the trinity of security guards that came running. A quintet of officers follow the team. They tag every woman they bowl over and have the criminal vanish into the bright forest and have to sprint up to keep up with the insane pace. The Hat's gigantic hand slams into a customer. The shattered nose and concussion are going to be the least of the woman's concerns when she's finally allowed to wake. They get above the level with the archives room and then point their weapons down. A quick plasma burst outright deletes the floor, and they jump down past the majority of the security and hardpoints protecting the archives. "All right, time for guerrilla work," the Hat notes as he cracks his neck and sets up for a charge. The force his shoulder gives to the security door would make a man think that a rhino had been abusing steroids, as the solid steel that's been axiom imbued to be resistant to all forms of plasma and lasers crumples like tinfoil despite being nearly 3 inches thick. The door thoroughly removed and set aside, nearly folded in half, the rest of the team piles in and quickly connects the archive to the cybercrime servers. They immediately start copying all the files. "Sweet Forest Human, you make one beast of a case for brute force," one of the older sorcerers notes. "I'm the muscle on my team. If I can't walk through walls without the axiom bullshit, then I'm just not strong enough." The Hat notes, mostly because they won't believe him when he says he trains by wrestling with his Canador wives while they're in full power armor. Like dealing with a princess minus the horns. The old sorcerer notes as the room is quickly secured by it being covered in mushrooms, and there are a few chuckles at his comment. "And now I just pictured the brute in a dress." "No." The Hat states directly, and there's some good-natured chuckling. "All right, that's our 2 main goals. We're now sweeping the tower and taking everyone down. After that, we're moving to the 3rd main holding facility for the children, slamming the guards and evacuating the kids, bandanas off when dealing with the rugrats. We don't want them to be scared of us." "All right, move out. Remember, all doors are opened and everyone is out and sent to the forest for sorting later. No exceptions. Move." The Hat orders as he leads the team out of the room and proceeds to ignore the doors out of the highly secure area by burning through the walls with a plasma rifle. Vernon nods as he takes further and further control of the pillars. He shut off outside access. That was the most important bit. But these things were insanely complicated. It was like trying to program in binary, long, complicated strings of information for even the simplest of commands. Still, he was making progress, and a lot of it. He's finally got his fingers around the controls for the sensory portion of the pillars. Teams, this is axiom control. I've cracked the sensory aspect of the pillars. This is what they're seeing. He sends into the bright forest and he feels the sorcerer's answer. Several teams double back to hit people they had previously missed in their sweeps. Security may be down and dead, but "So it's you," a voice says, and he turns to see an infuriated Alfar woman holding a Kutha badge in a shaking hand. "Me?" Vernon asks. She likely means the pillars, but honestly, it could be anything. Her infuriated response is to throw the device at his head, but since she throws like a girl, he catches it easily and grins. "Ah, thank you. This will be very helpful." He then incorporates the Kutha controller into his own control bar, and the metal shifts. Then the pillars open up even further. "Gentlemen, we have atmospheric control." He sends into the bright forest, and there's some cheering as he already starts monkeying around with the air composition. "Oh right, the woman's ranting at him. Perhaps he should pay attention." Even here?" She finishes up and he blinks. "I'm sorry, I was distracted. Could you repeat that, please?" he asks politely. His eyebrows go up in amusement to see the aura of rage and indignation literally erupt around her. So she's one of those types. Interesting. Let's see if his theory crafting on how to defeat specific axiom styles pans out. After all, an axiom style that uses tattoos to help weaponize and enhance your emotions makes for a fairly brutal berserker. But berserkers aren't known for learning or intelligence. Her opening move is a frontal charge wreathed in fire. His response is the lifting bar to the stomach that sends her flying back. Yes, he could have killed her with the opening move, but they're going for prisoners, not pieces of dead meat. It's hard to interrogate a corpse. She twists around and vanishes before reappearing behind him. He shifts his grip from his right hand, holding the bar to the left as he catches a brutal kick from the woman. He then tosses her. As predicted, she screams in fury and charges again. Even as he turns her momentum away and causes her to trip, he starts altering the atmosphere around most of the women in the entire facility. He doesn't just make it hard to breathe, but he hardens the air as well in order to stop them from running, hiding, or fighting. Turn this into an even bigger turkey shoot. "Well, I thought the burning passion was a style for the strong, not flailing children," Vernon asks to rile up the woman. And just like that, she goes from catching her breath and trying to come up with a plan to straight rushing him with murder on her face. Amazing. The tattoos have increased her emotional volatility so much that she's borderline under the effects of a frenzy patch. Definitely not something to recommend to the rest of the boys, and something to keep his daughters well away from, tattoos aside. The first fireball catches him in the side of the head, and he's not hurt or angry, just disappointed. "Lady, I dance in warfire. Step up your game," he tells her, and uses the butt of the bar to conk her on the head as she charges him again. "Or are you even capable of mental processes at this point? Those tattoos are doing a number on your mental processes." The answer he gets is a scream of unbridled rage. He simply snorts in annoyance as she charges again. Yes, the burning passion was not something to fear or use. It's a child style designed to let little kids feel powerful. Her final charge has him bring down the pole and use his connection to the Kutha and the bright forest to outright banish her there and fill her lungs with knockout spores. She hits the ground a quarter of the way around the planet and is snoring before she settles on the carpet of puffy mushrooms. That's the last of them. He sends into the bright forest. "Move on to the children and their caretakers. I'll round up the last few customers and security staff here. They're not able to go anywhere anyways." He gets a confirmation from everyone and nods as he starts sauntering over to the small, restrained and terrified crowd that was watching the fight. He grins a little and feels a touch of playfulness enter. "Boop," he says, poking the first customer in the nose, and she vanishes to the bright forest. Boop. His repeated banishments by Snoot Boop may very well turn part of this terrible tale into something that his daughters would like to hear in a few years. Maybe. Regardless, the best stories have a grain of truth to them after all. He feels the teams teleport out when they confirm the towers as empty and the teams of police descend to round up everyone else and secure the area. He's banishing his 50th customer when the officers approach. "Officer," he says neutrally. "Soldier, how are things here?" "We've only got 32 more individuals who are not police or allied forces remaining in this dome. It's a clean sweep so far." He reports and she nods. "Good. Very good. My girls are on pins and needles and—" The Tret officer begins to report before Vernon suddenly grabs her and pulls her to the side. A blur of blades resolves into a rabbi's woman with 4 curved swords and numerous kutha rings and piercings. "So, you're what's screwing with the pillars." She snarls and Vernon raises an eyebrow. "Madam, I advise you to surrender now." Vernon says in a tone that sounds bland, but that's because he's paying far, far more attention to the weapons. Pitted pattern at the microscopic scale, meaning molecularly serrated. "You've already lost. Don't add another charge of assault and attempted murder to things." The hell, she's not getting that charge. She just tried to... The officer begins and the rabbi's moves again and Vernon pulls back the officer once more. This time he also jams the control bar into the middle of the mess and catches 2 of the swords at once. "Perhaps you should leave this to me, officer? Those are molecularly serrated blades, and to be frank, you have more women to arrest, don't you?" Vernon asks, and the officer pauses for a moment before nodding. As the officer runs away, the rabbi's tries another teleporting swing, but Vernon teleports as well, the prevalence of spores in the area allowing him to woodwalk and interfere immediately. The reflexes on the 4-armed rabbit woman are downright unreal as she moves a sword so fast it effectively teleports. Its serrated edge kisses the side of Vernon's face, and he looks right down the brutal steel without fear. "My mothers may have taught me to never hurt a man, but one more interference from you and I'll make an exception." She snarls at him and his expression doesn't change. He rips the local atmosphere into a brutal hammer to send her soaring away and takes a double-handed swing at her with the 50-pound bar for good measure. There's the discordant ring of steel on Kutha as she parries it and teleports back onto the ground unharmed. "Stop!" he commands, focusing his will and axiom. He needed a mnemonic for something as complicated, slowing time in a controlled area. It had taken an embarrassingly long time to change it away from a reflexive shout of Za world. Still, it works perfectly fine as all the color drains from the area and the supernaturally quick rabbit woman slows down to a stop. He forms solid spears and brutal hammers of wind and slams them into the field, walking around her and sending more and more brutal atmospheric attacks directly at her. He might want to take people alive, but this one is likely too dangerous for that. Once he surrounds her entirely with death and damnation, he feels out her frozen axiom presence and studies it for a moment. He nods and then allows the construct to fade. She starts to move again and immediately senses the invisible danger. She tries to teleport, but he scrambles her sensation from a distance, and then she creates an opening. She uses his own disruptive energies and runs them along her swords to carve a hole big enough in the oncoming death to slip through with only a few cuts. "Cute trick. Are those all you have?" she asks as she clearly re-evaluates him. "You clearly haven't been paying attention to galactic affairs," Vernon notes. Not that he doesn't have his own reconsidering to do. This woman is dangerous and out for blood,